The mountain sing is there. um, that's my first book in English. So this book, even though it's inspired by real life experiences of my family and those I knew in real life or whom I interviewed in real life, it's totally fiction. The Chun family doesn't exist in real life, but they represent a lot of real life events, real life experiences that actually took place. So my intention in creating this family is that the members of their families are witness of historical events in Vietnam. And I want to present Vietnam more than the war. Vietnam is a country with more than 4,000 years of history and culture. So, this book, present Vietnam as a country with also a long and turbulent history, starting from the French invasion or the French colonization of Vietnam, the Japanese invasion that caused, the Great Hunger that killed 2 million Vietnamese, and also after that, the Vietnam War that took place that tore our country apart. And when there are a lot of books that have centered on the stories of from the American viewpoint, and I want to put Vietnamese people on the center stage with this book, because in this book there is this family has family members who fight, who had to fight against each other, brothers against brothers. And, that's why the war is very painful for a lot of Vietnamese families. And this is real life. A lot of families had members fighting against each other, and a lot of them died. And the issue of forgiveness and reconciliation is very difficult, and it is still a real life issue which is going on now. So the novel also deals with the war aftermath, issues of Agent Orange, unexploded bombs, which still have in Vietnam. But this novel is a lot also about joy, celebration of Vietnamese culture, of the Vietnamese spirit, Vietnamese women, also, love and forgiveness. I started this book with the idea of taking revenge on a man who had killed my own grandmother. And in the end, I found forgiveness instead. So many American veterans have written to me. They sent me pictures of themselves during the war. And they told me that during the war, they fought against, faceless enemies, because a lot of the time they did not have the chance to interact with Vietnamese people. And by reading this book, they could, they could get to know the Vietnamese and know how it was for Vietnamese people on the ground. And I think, and I mean, these exchanges with veterans have been just incredible. And this book have helped me become friends with so many people around the world, veterans, children of veterans, wives of veterans, and also, Vietnamese boat people who left Vietnam after the war, who saw themselves in this book. And, like a lot of the diasporic Vietnamese people told me before, they did not read the stories about northern Vietnamese. Vietnamese were Vietnam were divided into North and South. So most of the boat people came from South Vietnam. And so they saw, families from the North, like the Chun family in my book, who live in Hanoi. They saw them as the enemy, so they did not read, or they did not have the opportunity to read their stories and knew how it was for them. So many diasporic Vietnamese reached out to me and said, I did not know that Vietnamese from the North also suffered so much. So I just heard so many incredible stories, and two readers actually told me they reconnected with their parents after reading the book. Because in the book, Grandma Diệu Lan had to give away her children to make sure that they survived. And two of my readers, in reading the book, they told me they reflected on the fact that the decisions of their parents, and they came to understand why the parents had done that. So they reconnected with their parents after reading the book, and that was like the biggest reward possible. So similar to that, to the mountain thing, where I created a grandma to be able to have a grandmother. In that child, I created two sisters so that I would be able to have a sister. I was always like thinking, why didn't my parents give birth to another girl so I would have a sister? I was like, I yearned to have a sister. So I only have two brothers. So I created a sister, two sisters. So I would have a sister in real life. So it was really a lot of fun to develop the relationship between Chang and Nguyen in Dust Child. The two sisters are so different. And, because, they represent also the different characteristics of Vietnamese people. So Chang, the two sisters in the book, one of them is a poet and she's very romantic, and another one is like very realistic. She's very fierce and like she's very determined to make money. So so there are a lot of conflicts between the two sisters, but life, gave them a big test, and so they need to bond to be able to survive. That's right. Centers on the experiences of mixed race children born and abandoned during the Vietnam War. So, during the war, there were millions, like I read the statistics that there were like more than 2 million American soldiers or American servicemen who were in Vietnam. And many of them had relationships with Vietnamese women. And the results of mixed race children being born, and these soldiers did not want to have the children necessarily. Some of them had romantic relationship with these women. Some of them had casual relationships with bar girls or with sex workers, and they until today, many veterans don't know that they had father children in Vietnam. Recently, I helped a veteran reconnect with his daughter, and the daughter is already 53 years old. And he only found out about her when she contacted her via she found him via DNA testing. So this book is centered on these children who were abandoned during the war, because the mothers did not have the means to raise these kids, or because of different circumstances, or because the mothers passed away and the kids had to grow up on the street or in orphanages. So I have my character Phong, who's a Black Amerasian. So mixed race people born into the war are called Trẻ Lai or Amerasians. So Phong, my main character, is a Black Amerasian, and he experiences, extreme discrimination due to his skin color, also because of the fact that, because of the anti-American sentiment, and also because of a lot of, bad perceptions people have towards women who had relationships with American soldiers after the war. This book is about the journey of Phong trying to find himself, his confidence, trying to find happiness for his family, and a way of survival. And in his journey of finding his parents, he meets this American veteran who returns to Vietnam after the war, and unknown to his wife, unknown to the veteran's wife, he had a child in Vietnam. And when he arrives in Vietnam, he feels very guilty. He decides to look for his child, and the wife is shocked to find out about the husband's secret. So they have very bad arguments in Vietnam. So I have 4 characters in the book: the Black Amerasian, the American veteran, and his wife, and the 2 sisters. These 4 characters have a lot of secrets, and they need to resolve their trauma and their their journeys will meet in a way that shocked me as a writer, because I did not know the book would end like that. But the ending totally, I mean, broke my heart. I cried a lot because by that time I love all my characters. I empathize with their experiences. So it took me 7 years. I did a lot of real life research, under the guidance of an ethical committee. Like when people search for each other, there are a lot of ethical implications because some people don't want to be found. Imagine the young Vietnamese women who were forced to work in bars to serve American soldiers during the war. And if they had children with American soldiers, and I interviewed some of them, they gave the children away and they have regrets, but they have to bury that secrets to be able to move on. And now some of them have families, have children, and they haven't been able to reveal that dark past that they had to live with. So so in interviewing these people, I had to take into account their trauma, their secret, and I had to protect their identity in the book. So I am really like thankful I had the opportunity to research for this novel as part of my PhD in creative writing, where I could design and conducted my research within the ethical framework, because writing can kill people. I have a friend in Vietnam who told me, don't you forget, writers have blood on your pens. His father volunteered to go to war because of all the pro-war propaganda that he was exposed to. So he volunteered to go to war. And so my friend really blamed writers at that time who only focus on stories of wars, like people who fought in wars were heroes. And I mean, of course, there are heroes doing wars, but also wars have the power to turn people into monsters. There were a lot of atrocities that were committed during wars and doing wars these days as well. So, I wanted to highlight these horrors and these atrocities of wars, and highlight the need for peace and for humans to love humans more.